welcome to today's webinar. In today's fast-moving and competitive world, it's not just about visibility. Today, real impact comes with being authentic, culturally aware, and smart about how you use technology. Today's webinar is titled From Reputation to Influence, How to Build Impact Brands in the U.S. market. My name is Yarela Callejas, and I will be your moderator for this session, hosted in collaboration with GIC. Before we begin, and for those that are joining us for the first time, let me briefly introduce the Spain U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping businesses expand into the United States by offering international business consulting along with events, networking opportunities, and educational programs. If you would like to learn more about our upcoming activities or explore additional webinars, I invite you to take a look on our website at www.spainuschamber.com or subscribe to our YouTube channel. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A segment. Feel free to submit your questions at any time using the question tab that is located on the right side of your control panel. We would love to hear from you, so feel free to send your questions or comments during the session. Now, let me introduce our partner for today's webinar, GIC, formerly known as Llorente y Cuenca. They are one of Spain's top global communications and marketing firms. With over 25 years of experience and nearly a decade of operations in the US, GIC helps international companies to manage reputation and build a strong stakeholder relationship. Their US offices are located in Miami, Detroit, and Grand Rapids in Michigan. As a panelist, we have Mike Houston. He leads GIC's US operations and has nearly 20 years of experience in corporate communication, marketing, product development, and investment strategy. Besides being CEO, he is also the co-founder of Ticker, a digital platform that helps companies connect with their retail shareholders. Before GIC, Mike also worked with other very well-known companies, such as Ancestry, the popular DNA and family history service, where he helped shape the company's communication strategy while maintaining strong relationships with investors. And America, a US medical device company, where he was vice president of commercialization in charge of sales and marketing. Thank you so much, Mike, for being with us today. I am sure that everybody here is expecting to hear from your experience.
And so really, we were born in Spain, but like many of you, we've worked hard to make a mark in the US. So our journey hasn't been linear by any stretch of the imagination. It's been more about adapting, integrating, and really above all, embracing change. So the one thing I want to emphasize from the start, there's no single path to success in this market. So whether you're expanding, acquiring, or really just exploring, the lessons I'll share today are universal, truly. And so our work and our clients have taught us that today's most successful brands are really those that combine creativity, data, and most importantly, cultural intelligence. And that's the lens I invite all of us to really look through today. And so as I take a little bit of time here to personally contemplate, where we're at on the journey, and I'd invite you to do the same. I'm sure there's some of you here who are part of an organization already doing business in the US, while maybe others are just beginning to think about entering the market. And as we begin, I want to frame our conversation around the journey that every organization faces when entering or really even trying to grow in the US market. For many companies, especially those with roots abroad, this journey is both exciting and can be daunting at the same time too. It's truly a path filled with enormous opportunity, but also with complexity and at times some unexpected twists that we've even been seeing here in the first part of this year, right? So for LLYC, that journey really starting with a clear vision, but required adaptability at every step. So we recognized early on that simply replicating what worked in Spain or in Latin America wouldn't be enough to succeed here. So the US is not just another market. It's really a living ecosystem of different cultures, industries, and quite honestly, expectations. It demands that you not only understand the fundamentals of your business, but really also immerse yourself deeply in the landscape that you're stepping into. So each company's journey is shaped by its own ambitions, its resources, its timing, but I think more importantly, its willingness to learn and adapt. So the companies that really thrive in the U.S. are the ones that embrace change. It's the ones that are open to feedback, that view the journey as a long-term investment and not necessarily just as a quick win. So one of the most important lessons we've learned is the value of market immersion. So you really have to be willing to listen, to really hear what your clients, your partners, even your competitors, what they're saying about the market and really about your brand. So this means moving beyond assumptions and really being willing to question everything from your messaging to your business model and everything in between. It also means embracing challenges, especially as those challenges could provide opportunities to grow. Every obstacle you'll encounter, from cultural misunderstandings to regulatory surprises, they become a chance to refine your approach and build resilience into your strategy. And so at the heart of it, the U.S. rewards persistence and agility. And that's true for brands at every stage, whether you're exploring, expanding, or acquiring. But really, like I said, throughout today's conversation, I'll be sharing some examples, some insights that we've gained from companies in all of these phases. And so my genuine hope is that you'll find something here that resonates with your own experience, whether you're well established in the U.S. or just beginning to chart your own course. And really, above all, I want to stress that the journey is not about following a rigid set of instructions, but rather equipping yourself with the with the insight, the market tools, and really perspective to adapt and thrive. And today we'll explore how creativity, data, cultural intelligence, all those, really the key cornerstones of help really shape that adaptive mindset. So with that, let's really dive in here. And so our first insight is the shift from reputation to influence. So years ago, brands were obsessed with reputation management, controlling the message, shaping public perception. But today, reputation alone isn't enough. Influence is what matters, and influence can't simply be managed. It has to be earned over time, in the trenches, that day by day, day in, day out. And really, we live in an age where consumers want connection, not perfection. So in fact, if you try to present a picture perfect brand, it will often backfire. People really crave authenticity. They want to see the human side of your company, the passion, the flaws, the journey that you've been on, what's got you to this point. But I wanted to share a concrete example around this, and it being Supreme. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the brand, but this brand has built an almost cult-like following. Their consumers are incredibly committed, lining up for limited drops and engaging in forums, sharing everything online. And why is that? And I truly believe it's because Supreme is real. They can be surprising, and maybe more importantly, they're consistent. So they're not afraid to experiment, collaborate, or really even poke fun at themselves. Their influence isn't a result of a perfectly crafted message. It's a result of authenticity, relevance, and again, consistency, right? And so Supreme's brand is as much about what the community says as what the company says. And so as you think about your brand, I'd invite everybody to just ask that question to yourself around your brand. What are we trying to be perfect? Are we trying to connect? And so as you take that moment, think of a brand that you're loyal to, something that you buy or wear or recommend to friends. Why is it that you feel that loyalty? Is it because they never make mistakes? Or is it because they feel real and accessible, it aligns with your values, right? There's a number of reasons, but it's never around the perfection, the perceived perfection that they try to put out there. So with that, I want to move on a little bit here and talk a little bit about the U.S. market itself. It's often called a melting pot, but I believe the reality today is even more nuanced and dynamic, for that matter. The U.S. isn't in my mind, isn't simply just a melting pot, it's a mosaic. It's a vibrant patchwork of identities, regions, values, experiences, and they all exist side by side. So for me, the mosaic is one of defining features, and quite honestly, the greatest opportunities of doing business in America. So when you look at the country as a whole, it's tempting to think of it in terms of a single national market. But in reality, the U.S. is a constellation of distinct communities, each with its own customs and history and again, expectations of brands, right? And so you see this reflected everywhere. One, in the media they consume, in the food they eat, in the way they communicate, right? And really, at the heart of it, how they relate to brands and institutions. But the difference between these regions are pronounced, right? The language, the humor, cultural references that resonate maybe in New York City might feel completely out of place in Detroit or Miami, right? And so what appeals to consumers, for instance, in Los Angeles, can fall flat in the Midwest. And so even within cities, you find enclaves of culture and tradition that operate almost like micro markets. But to be honest too, and one thing to consider, it's not just about the geography. This U.S. mosaic is also generational. So the priorities and digital habits of Gen Z and Gen Alpha are worlds apart from the baby boomers and I'd even argue Gen X. And so what might excite one group may leave another unmoved, right? So there's these deep layers of ethnic, cultural diversity that continue to shape the American experience. And for brands, this complexity can be both a challenge, but also a tremendous asset. It means there's no one size fits all type of strategy that will guarantee success nationwide. It really demands a mindset of respect and curiosity. And so at the heart of that, it's a willingness to listen, to learn, and really engage with each part of that mosaic on its own terms. But when you start to see the U.S. as a mosaic rather than a monolith, I think everything changes. Your messaging becomes more precise, your campaigns become more relevant, you find new audiences and discover opportunities you might have overlooked. And I think most importantly, you demonstrate respect for the people you hope to serve and you hope to have as a customer or a client, and you're meeting them where they are, rather than asking them to meet you where you are, or maybe where you feel most comfortable, right? And so embracing this complexity isn't just good for business, it's essential for any brand that really wants to thrive in the U.S. today. So the brands that succeed here are those that understand that America's diversity is it's not so much a hurdle to overcome, but really a landscape of possibility, the mosaic that can be celebrated and engaged, and we can be inspired by it at the same time too. And so this really brings me to the power of cultural intelligence. Many companies, especially those entering from abroad, think that they can simply translate their campaigns into English and call it a day, right? But the translation isn't enough. You have to, what I would call, transcreate. So, and really what I mean by that is adapting the emotion, the humor, the references, and the values to really resonate with your audience. So take Sol de Janeiro as an example. This brand was born in Brazil, but when they came to the U.S., they didn't try to just be another American brand. Instead, they embraced their roots, they leaned into inclusivity, and they worked with influencers and built a reputation for being fun, bold, and diverse. And these are everything that connects with Gen Z and Gen Alpha audiences here. And so I truly believe their success didn't come from being the loudest or having the biggest budget, but from being the most relevant, understanding what matters emotionally to their target market. So if you look into it in the US, don't just ask, how do we translate our brand? Ask, how can we really transcreate our story, that community, to those communities we want to serve? But I'd even encourage you, shortly after this webinar, to just sit down and jot down for yourself one unique insight you have about your U.S. audience. something that goes beyond the obvious, something that a competitor might not know. And it's a really fun example to really start unlocking some of the strategy that could help guide your interactions with that US audience, right? But moving on a little bit, I want to talk about authenticity and brand activism. And there's a stat I love to share. 63% of Gen Z and Gen Alpha reject inauthentic advertising. And so we can debate, what that really means around inauthentic advertising. But again, they know the difference. They expect brands to stand for something and to really mean it. We can look at Dove, right? Dove challenged historic beauty standards, spotlighted real people of all backgrounds and body types. And their Real Beauty campaign started a global conversation around not just the Dove product, but around self-esteem and really changed how beauty was portrayed in the media. You could also take Ben & Jerry's, for example, the ice cream brand with a conscience. They didn't shy away from advocating for climate action or social justice, and their actions consistently back up their words. And I think that's critical, especially in today's climate. And then lastly, not too long ago, REI, the outdoor retailer here, made some significant headlines by refusing to participate in Black Friday. And if you think back to this time, that's when brands, you could argue we're getting a little bit on the desperate side as it related to making sure that Black Friday was indeed a Black event, to where they were very much in the black and profitable. And we're extending what Black Friday even meant, to where some were even opening on Thanksgiving morning, right? And so REI really helped change that conversation. And instead, they encouraged people to get outside and live their brand's values authentically and boldly. So really, what do these brands have in common? For me, they're consistent, authentic, and willing to back up their beliefs with real actions. Their stories are raw, not overly polished, and really, again, if it doesn't feel human, it simply just doesn't land. And so these three examples show us something crucial. Authenticity isn't a slogan or a side campaign. It's really a daily commitment to act in ways that reflect what your brand truly stands for. So when brands have the courage to take real, let's be honest, sometimes uncomfortable stands, and to stay consistent over time, they don't just earn attention. I truly believe they earn trust. They turn customers into advocates, and they transform everyday transactions into relationships built on respect. So in a world where consumers have endless options and where skepticism can be high, authenticity really stands out. People remember brands that are brave enough to be honest, human, and again, consistent in word and in deed. And ultimately, it's not the loudest or the best brand campaign that wins. It's this new landscape. It's the one that dares to be real every single day. But I think that's where it comes to storytelling. And so as we shift gears a little bit here, I want to focus on something that every leader cares about, and that's driving results. Data shows us that stories drive memory, and memory drives action, but the best stories really blend that emotion and data. I truly believe both are needed to convert interest into behavior and action. And so I think Heineken's a great example of this, where just sharing another case study here, they realize their success relies on the bars and the restaurants that serve their products. And so what do? They started telling the stories of these small businesses in their advertising, which not only humanized the brand, but also supported the companies that they rely on, the communities that they rely on. And so, and maybe another quick example here, in Spain, the BBK Foundation saw how widespread loneliness was becoming. So they told the story of Mercedes, who was a real woman living alone. And by giving loneliness a face and a name, they sparked a national conversation and inspired meaningful change that even was taking hold in the legislative branches there in Spain. And so, again, if we take a step back, how do you tell a story that converts, right? And for me, there's three items to keep in mind. First and foremost, start with your why. Why do you exist? Why should people care? What is that reason to believe that a client or a customer should have as you're really looking to enter the U.S. market here? Second would be show real people, show employees, customers, communities, the things that you're passionate about. What are those audiences that you're passionate about? And make sure to show those and highlight them. And then lastly, and I'd say equally as important, the third point here, use data to reinforce your message. But always connect emotionally first. I think first and foremost, having that at the forefront of your minds as you're developing strategies and really maybe some of the tactics that reinforce those strategies. Data to reinforce the message, but make sure to connect emotionally first. So let's talk a little bit about something that's changing branding and marketing faster than really anything I've seen in my career. Generative AI, or just artificial intelligence in general. You've probably heard of all the kinds of claims of what AI can do, and quite honestly, perhaps a few fears about what it might replace, right? But really, at LLYC, we see AI as a creative partner, not just a substitute for the human mind. AI can make us more efficient, speed up content creation, and really personalize messages at scale. And I think that's the most critical component there too, is doing it at scale. But what AI can't do, at least not yet, is replace intuition, creativity, emotional intelligence. So when used thoughtfully, I think AI can accelerate brainstorming, help marketers identify emerging trends, generate personalized content, like I said, at scale, but even to unlock new creative directions that maybe wouldn't have emerged through traditional methods. Really, again, maybe to go back to the key point here, I think it's a catalyst for experimentation. AI really allows brands to test ideas rapidly and discover what truly resonates with their audiences. So maybe if we could, let's take a closer look at how AI can impact what I think are three critical areas for brand growth. So positioning, creativity, and efficiency. So first with positioning. AI tools are already helping brands uncover new opportunities in the market, identifying untapped niches, spotting shifts in consumer sentiment, and even too, mapping out competitive landscapes and doing it in real time and at scale again. So with the right data and of course too with the right prompts, which I'm sure a lot of you are learning or have learned, AI can analyze vast quantities of online conversations, reviews, trends, and provide fresh insights that might take a human team weeks, months, or even quarters to surface. So really this means that brands can move faster and smarter at the same time while adjusting their messaging or product strategy before the competition even knows what's happening. And so the second point here is creativity. The AI has truly become a creative partner for us and other marketers and communicators. So instead of replacing the creative process, I feel like it acts as an amplifier. It can suggest headlines, it can generate initial visuals, it can even build out campaign concepts, right? And write early drafts of copy. But think about how much more rapidly a campaign can evolve when the team can iterate on hundreds of ideas in minutes, not weeks, right? So I think more importantly, when AI often surprises us, breaking us out of our creative ruts and can really encourage us to be bold in our thinking, maybe in ways that we may not have emerged, like I said, again, through that traditional brainstorming. And finally here, efficiency. So I genuinely believe AI dramatically increases the speed and scale at which brands can execute their strategies. And a lot of those repetitive, time-consuming tasks like resizing assets or localizing content for multiple markets or even generating routine reports can now be handled by AI. And really that frees up a lot of valuable human bandwidth. It means that teams can focus on higher level work, relationship building, strategy, and quite honestly, innovation at the same time. And so when you combine these elements, better positioning, bigger creative leaps, and operational efficiency, I think you really unlock a level of agility that's unprecedented and quite honestly is quite necessary here in the US market. The brands that are embracing generative AI aren't losing their human touch. I believe they're multiplying it. They're augmenting their people's best instincts and insights with tools that really let them do more of what matters most. I think a good example of this, as you can see on the slide here, is Heinz. They ran a really fascinating campaign to where they asked DALL-E, an AI image generator, to produce images of ketchup. So what were the results? Almost all of them looked like Heinz bottles. And so it's such a tangible, perfect example of that's the power of brand recognition. And it's also a reminder that AI, for all of its smarts, can only build on what we put out into the world, that what's already available, that the AI tool can learn from, right? And so I think even more so too, there's another striking stat here that over 35% of search queries today deliver AI generated answers. And like you saw on the last slide there too, traffic to retail websites from AI sources has jumped over 1,200% just in the last year. So all that to say, I think used optimally, AI can help you find white space in your market, scale creative ideas, and experiment faster. And I think that's really the beauty of it, because on the other side here too, the wisdom is knowing when to use AI and when to rely on human experts, right? And I think that's something that we're all learning. But AI accelerates discovery by analyzing vast data sets that can reveal emerging trends, audience insights, but also too doing this while powering engagement through hyper-personalized content, and I'd even say too real-time campaign optimization if you're using AI the right way. So as we move into monitoring and operations within a go-to-market funnel, AI continuously tracks sentiment, performance, automates those responses, streamlines the workflows, and really ensures brands remain agile and proactive in a rapidly changing market. And so at LLYC, a number of months ago, we embarked on a fun project to really test the perceptivity of AI. So we used it to really ask it if, for a number of brands, clients and not, generate an image that most embodies these brands, and we'd feed it the data points that it needed, from how the company messages to its visual assets. And so I won't reveal who these brands are, but it was really an eye-opening exercise. The AI's interpretation almost never match how brands see themselves. And so this exercise really revealed a gap between the brand's self-perception and how an unbiased digital intelligence sees us, right? It can really offer valuable insight into what our signals and stories are truly communicating to the outside world here. But before I close, I wanted to talk a little bit about trust. Trust is, for me, the single most valuable currency a brand can earn. And in today's world, it's also the most fragile. Building trust takes years of consistent effort, clear values and missions, and an authentic engagement with your audience. But as we've seen time and again, trust can be lost in an instant, right? And sometimes not even by what a brand does, but by what a brand fails to do. So one of the realities of operating in the US, and to be honest, really anywhere today, is that information spreads faster than ever. News, rumors, opinions, they can reach millions, billions of people within hours. This speed is a double-edged sword, right? It gives brands unprecedented opportunities to connect, but on the other hand, also exposes them to rapid backlash if trust is breached, or if a response is perceived as slow or even tone deaf. So consider the recent Coca-Cola and Latino boycott example. It began with unverified claims and quickly escalated across social media. So what turned into a small spark, or what turned a small spark into a wildfire, was not just the original allegation, but really the brand's initial silence. So in the digital age, saying nothing often says everything. I mean, let's be honest, right? The audiences interpret a lack of response as a lack of care, or even worse, an admission of guilt, right? And so that's why building trust is not just about being present when things are going well, but it's about being visible and accountable when things get tough. Brands really need to move beyond simply just being seen. They must be actively engaged, listening, and responding in real time when they can, right? It's about being transparent, owning mistakes when they happen, right? And then showing the humanity behind the brand. I mean, maintaining trust also means understanding the cultural relevance of your actions. Like I said earlier, it's not enough to just run campaigns and translate it to English or make certain statements. Brands really need to back up their words with meaningful actions, and making sure that they're consistent over time, that it's not just a one-off opportunity, but trust is really about reliability, about showing up to your community and showing up for your community, and really demonstrating that your brand values go beyond just the marketing slogans and the taglines that everybody knows you by. I would argue that the influence without responsibility can become negligence. And the brands that endure are those that invest in trust every day, knowing that this investment, though, to be quite honest, sometimes it's intangible. It's really what sustains reputation, loyalty, and long-term growth, sustainable long-term growth. So in the end, trust is not built through grand gestures, but I believe it's through thousands of small, everyday actions, each one an opportunity to prove that your brand deserves a lasting place in the lives that of the people that you want to serve and interact with. And so for me, the lesson is clear. Trust is a long-term investment. It's easy to lose and very hard to rebuild. Cultural relevance means being present, and not just visible, but being present, right? Influence without responsibility, like I said, can quickly turn into negligence. So maybe bringing this all together, I wanted to, again, kind of talk through these 5 points and really for me, the 5 principles that I hope you take away today. So first being build influence, not just reputation. It's not about controlling the message, but about connecting with the people that you're trying to communicate with. The second one, invest in cultural intelligence. So go beyond translation, transcreate, right? Learn the emotional drivers of your audience while also coupling that with data to position yourself in the best light possible with each of those micro communities that I had talked about earlier. Third point, be boldly authentic. It's super easy to say, much harder to put into practice, but really at the heart of it, it's stand for something and live it every day. Again, going back to that consistency, right? So, and then the fourth principle, tell stories that move people and drive growth. So blend that emotion with the data and really lead with your why. And I think that's a critical exercise personally, but I think even within the teams that you work with, of really ask that question of what is that why behind our brand, and why is it could be a key differentiator here in the U.S. And at least for us and what I've seen over the years, it really helps shape that path that you want for that strategic plan. And then lastly, with AI, use it as a creative partner, but never sacrifice that human touch. Let technology make you better, but not less human. So I think that's a critical component here, especially as we all figure out how best to utilize AI, optimize AI in our business. But I think in closing, I really just wanted to thank you all for your attention, and really at the heart of it, your dedication to building brands that matter, that move people, and that really make a difference. If there's one thing I hope you remember from today, it's this: that success in the U.S. isn't about being the loudest or the biggest or having the largest budget. It's about being the most relevant, being the most authentic, and I think too, being the most connected. So with that, I wish you the best of luck on your journey. I want to make sure we have a few minutes here to open it up for questions and comments and such. But maybe with that, I'll turn it back over to you there, and we can get into the Q&A portion.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was very interesting, and actually have to say that marketing, like you mentioned before, is not just about age, gender, or location. What the new generations, especially the Gen Z, are expecting now is the brand to be authentic, share values, and personalized experiences. And you came out with very great examples how the brands can communicate and can resonate with all the socials and environment issues as well. So thank you so much. It was very interesting. So we're gonna go right now with the questions. We already have some questions. The first one is, how do you balance staying culturally authentic in local markets while maintaining a consistent global brand voice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think balancing cultural authenticity with that consistent global brand voice, for me, it really starts with having a clear, deeply rooted brand purpose, right? But going back to the why, right? What is that why? What is your North Star, right? And so locally we can create rather than just translate, right? We can adapt campaigns and messaging and experiences to make sure we reflect values and languages. But I think even more importantly that's why you want to be focused on the creation side, because it hits at the nuances of each market, right? While ensuring the core brand and its promise remain intact. So for me, it's not just about uniformity, but about resonance. So giving local teams the freedom to shape how the brand shows up, but really too, so long as every touch point feels true to your shared global values, right? Because you always want to bring it back to what are those global values. And so I think leveraging that approach, that mosaic approach, if you will, respects both the diversity of the local audiences, but then also just the unity of your brand.
Great, thank you, Mike. Next question. What does real brand activism looking like beyond just posting on social media?
Yeah, so real brand activism goes far beyond posts or hashtags. It's all about consistency. Again, I think first and foremost, but so if you're consistent, I think I'll even say courageous actions that align with your stated values are just as important. So maybe if we go back to those three examples I showed earlier around Dove, Ben & Jerry's, and REI, they show us that activism means taking stands that, quite honestly, may be uncomfortable sometimes or controversial. I think especially in the climate that we're in right now here in the U.S., but where the value really comes from that approach is then backing it up with real change. So it could be changing your hiring practices, rethinking supply chains, funding for advocacy. And I'm just trying to think of some of the other brands, some of the things that they do that maybe forfeit short-term sales or profits for the sake of a principle, right? For me, it's all about making an impact in your community and within your industry, but not just your social media feed, right? Ultimately, it's what you do, especially when no one's watching. And I think that's really what sets authentic brand activism apart across the brands.
Thank you, Mike. We're going to talk now about storytelling. Storytelling has become a big topic. Now more than ever, especially with all the AI tools out there, that they are really changing the way how we communicate, right? But the real challenge is knowing whether it is working. So how do you measure if your storytelling is actually converting?
Yeah, I mean, that's critical, right? That is the storytelling converting, and I think part of it maybe is looking beyond the typical vanity metrics that we track and layering in as much as we can, right? We've got to rely on the data sets that we have access to, but also tracking both emotional and behavioral outcomes. I think this could even go beyond kind of a sentiment, but rather like a tone. And I think it starts with engagement. Are people sharing? Are they commenting? Are they interacting with your stories? Right? It can be as simple as that. But then building on that, looking for evidence that your narrative is driving desired outcomes, right, or desired actions. So like increased website visits, signups, sales. I think there's brand lift studies, sentiment analysis, attribution tracking. All these can reveal if your message is shifting perception and prompting real world behavior. But I think really, again, kind of maybe taking us back, conversion is about seeing the long tail, right? Are you building lasting brand loyalty, repeat customers, and advocacy? And I think effective storytelling should move people emotionally and move the needle on your business objectives.
Great, thank you, Mike. I have another question here. It's a little more specific. It's related about the category of seafood. So this person is asking, they have a product related to tunas, and they feel that they are a little old-fashioned. How do you suggest, or what do you recommend as a key lever for build emotional connection in a brand like this? They are old-fashioned, they are canned food, and they want to influence in the U.S. customers. I don't know if we have enough time for this specific question, but maybe you can give us a little highlight. And also, if you need more time, you are very welcome to send an email to Marta or the emails that we're gonna share with you all. But let's see if we can get some highlight from here.
No, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is really, again, how do you uncover the authentic emotional stories that already exist around your product, right? Is it a family brand? Is there nostalgia attached to it? Is it convenience? Oftentimes with CPG, with food companies, it could be health. So, tuna, it isn't just a pantry staple. It could, I'm going on a limb here, but maybe to connect generations, right? Like, are you eating tuna because your great grandpa loved tuna, right? Is it a quick meal for parents that they could just have with their family? Right, there's a lot of emotional connection you could build on and really reframe old-fashioned to more, how is it timeless? Like, how do you highlight how the brand fits in a modern lifestyle, right? And Maybe as if, like in the U.S. market, I think influence happens when brands become part of people's stories. So that could be sharing real life moments, quick recipes, like Taco Tuesday, maybe it could be Tuna Tuesday, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of things that you could think about, right? But again, maybe go back to what's most important is listen to what those U.S. customers care about today, whether it's, again, that health aspect, clean ingredients, your environmental stewardship, convenience, whatever the case might be, but find authentic ways to demonstrate how your brand aligns with those values.
Thank you, Mike. I didn't want to really go very deep on it, but thank you so much for your answer. I have another question here. What are the three aspects of the Spanish culture that do you think that resonates more with the people in the US?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I still learn more about the Spanish culture, I just want to caveat that I'm definitely not the expert around the Spanish culture and how that resonates with the U.S. But I would say I think really just that familial environment, right? Like one of the things I've always loved is when everybody's getting together late in the night to have dinner, and it's a sharing opportunity rather than just you're there to eat and you're only there to eat, but rather you're there to learn more about each other, really literally break bread. It's a saying here in the U.S., but really to break bread with one another, and have that familial type environment that I think all too often in the U.S. we lose sight of, and that it could be a great way to remind people that there are some parallels within the two cultures, and maybe that's one parallel that you can really be able to play up a bit more than maybe some existing U.S. brands are doing today. But yeah, sorry, that one's just off the cuff, but I think it is, trying to find those parallels, and in the end, we're all humans, right? We all have challenges, opportunities, growth, right? And so how do you really hone in on some of those parallels between the two cultures and show that your brand resonates within those parallels? So.
Thank you, Mike. Another question. As a Gen Z, how do you think companies can adapt to changing trends? Do you think they should dedicate a specific effort to it? More specifically about Gen Z. How the companies can adapt to Gen Z?
Yep. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
Sorry, if you could, my audio connection went a little sideways here, and I don't know. Can you still see me? Sorry.
Yes, we actually can see you. Let me double check. Yes, we are steering.
So okay, perfect. All right, because I can't see my video feed anymore, but perfect. So sorry, if you could repeat that question.
Yes. As a Gen Z, how do you think companies can adapt to changing trends? Do you think they should dedicate a special efforts to this?
So as it relates to advising a Spanish brand entering the U.S. today?
No, the Gen Z. How do you think the companies have to adapt to the effort to communicate with Gen Z?
Yeah, so I think again, it comes back to that authenticity, right? And making sure that you have the values that align with Gen Z, and I'd also throw in Gen Alpha in this conversation too. That it's going to be critically important for brands to really, I guess, understand what they stand for and what has made them successful today, and again what that translates to here in the U.S. Because I think really the biggest risk that brands potentially face, especially as they're looking to come here in the U.S. market, is again that U.S. isn't a monolith. It's that mosaic of cultures, and really brands that treat it as a one-size-fits-all are missing the mark. They'll lose relevance and really fail to connect. So I think it is, even within Gen Z, thinking beyond just the generational aspect of it, but rather to what are the local geographies that you're really trying to focus in on, and what's the relevance that your brand brings to those local markets.
Thank you, Mike. If you were to recommend a book that you believe that influence in your business approach, what will be that book that you will say you have to read this book?
So first one that always comes to mind is Good to Great. So it's really a fantastic book around, and it uses a significant amount of data, but what really separates those good companies from those great companies. And it looks at publicly traded companies over decades, and really being able to get at the heart of again, what makes a good company great, and what are those concepts and strategies that a company can deploy, regardless of the industry, the brand, the values, to really have long-term sustainable success. So that has been one of my long-term favorites for years. So Jim Collins is the author, but yeah, Good to Great is one of my favorites. So.
Great. I have another question here. What marketing trends are you watching closely in the 2025?
That's a very broad question, mostly because, I mean, so even within marketing, I think for me, it's really about the technology, right? Like in 2025, especially when we've got not just necessarily the advent of AI, but I think people are really starting to learn what is this artificial intelligence and how can I best utilize it? I think that's really the trend, and maybe going back to some of those slides I had talked about with AI, it's never losing sight of that human touch, right? That you can have that creative partner within AI, but at the heart of it, just never sacrifice coming across as even less human, not necessarily just not human. So I think it really is the technology and how we harness it. And for me, that's probably the biggest trend as it relates to marketing. But then to keep it simple, even too, really understanding how does AI view your company and your brand, and even too, you personally. We have an innovation team dedicated to just this. And one of the questions that we posed that they posed to the leaders here internally a number of months ago was, in essence, Google yourself on AI. See what AI says about you. Is it even correct? And so again, it's harnessing that technology and that data for good, for your brand, for yourself, and for where you want to be strategically. I think that's what's really going to shape a lot of brands' efforts here over this next year.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. I think that we covered all the questions already. As we start to warm up and thinking about Spanish and Latin American brands that wants to enter into U.S. market, what is the one key piece of advice you would like them, or you will they avoid? What is a mistake that you will tell them they have to avoid?
Yeah, and I think I talked a little bit about this, but and really, I think the single biggest mistake is that I'd warn against is assuming that what works in Spain, or really, for that matter, anywhere else, will work unchanged here in the U.S. So, like I said, the U.S. isn't a monolith. It's that mosaic, right? And so brands that treat it as a one-size-fits-all risk, like I said earlier, really risk missing the mark. So my advice would be, and again, I've said this a few times in different questions and even in the comments there, but immerse yourself locally. Really understand what drives the local markets that you're trying to break into. Listen deeply, and just be willing to adapt. Everything from your messaging to really even your business model. I think listening deeply will really help guide that trajectory, and maybe even to tie in some of the other thoughts I talked about. But I can't say it enough. Authenticity and flexibility are the keys, I think, for sustainable growth in this market, and really being able to optimize the diversity of this market too.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. It was a very, very great time. You answered a lot of questions, and I believe that everybody in here was expecting this, and you actually get right on the point. And thank you so much for your time, for being here. And thank you, everyone. We have finished the webinar for today. If you want to learn more about our activities or our upcoming webinars, please don't hesitate to reach out to our website at www.spainUSchamber.com. Thank you for your time again, Mike, and see you later.
Thanks, everyone.